GDPR is the regulation for protection of personal data in European Union. It's a regulation enacted by European Union for the protection of the rights and freedoms of the natural person in EU region among all the member states within EU, the European Union, for protection of their rights and freedom for personal data and privacy. Since 1995, European Union has been governing the personal data, their processing through a directive which given the rights to each of the member states to develop and enact their own regulations for protection of personal data. As the industry progressed, as the technology, internet, the global scenario of cyber security, everything evolved, there was a need to refine the regulations and directives according to that. So in 2014, the European Commission has approved a proposal to have one common regulation across European Union for data protection. So that's where the idea of GDPR emerged. In 2016, the Union has approved a new regulation called GDPR. This was notified. There was a 2-year window provided for the authorities to set up a governing infrastructure, governing processes and mechanisms for ensuring the enablement and enforcement of this particular regulation, and also for the parties who will be liable under GDPR to prepare and implement all the measures required for complying with GDPR. So the GDPR, after this 2-year window, came into effect on 25th May 2018. As we discussed, this regulation is intending to protect the rights and freedom of natural persons within EU with respect to the processing and protection of their personal data. The regulation specifically applies to the collection and processing of personal data of any living natural person within European region in any of the member states under that. GDPR defines a personal data as any data which is belonging to an identified or identifiable natural person, which directly or indirectly can point to that person, right? So it can be any aspect like his name, full name, first name, last name, contact details, address, biometric data, health information, financial data, anything which can be directly or indirectly linked to a living natural person is considered as a personal data under GDPR. So the GDPR regulation applies whenever anybody collects and processes any of this personal data which is belonging to a living natural person in EU. GDPR is protecting the freedom, rights and interests of any living natural person in EU. So it's any living natural person in EU. It is not specific to any citizens of any member states of EU. So the word citizen is not used in GDPR. It is any living natural person within EU, which means a couple of things for us to understand. This living natural person in EU need not be a EU citizen or a citizen of any of the member states. For example, a US citizen or an Indian citizen currently located in EU, if his or her data is being collected and processed by an entity, GDPR applies to that. On the other hand, if one of the citizens of an EU member state, let's say a French or a German citizen, travels to another country, let's say Australia or Dubai or US, when his data is being collected and processed while in that region or in that country, GDPR does not apply there. So it's important for us to understand GDPR applies when the data of a living natural person geographically within EU is being collected and processed. That's where GDPR applies. Secondly, the company or the entity which collects and processes this information need not be in EU. It's about a person who is in EU. So if this data is being collected by an entity or any organization which is outside EU, even if they are not established in EU, if they are collecting and processing the personal information of a living natural person in EU, GDPR directly applies there. So this way, the scope and applicability of GDPR need to be understood.